Hello, everybody, one and all. Welcome to the reading room, ladies and gentlemen. And joining me is my co-host and gorgeous human being, Max. How you doing,
Hello.
Max? And I hope everybody out there as well. I do apologize. I just shoved cereal in my face because I missed breakfast because the debate was early. So my apologies, all my fault. I just had to get something in my stomach. But yeah, so I unceremoniously scarfed some Sultana brand, so I'm ready to go.
We were speculating what you were eating.
Really? Okay. All right. What did you get? Someone said pangolins? Is that?
Yeah, pangolins and kangaroos and wombats and pork to be extra haram tonight. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No. Look, if you ever have to eat in a hurry, cereal's the way to go, in my opinion. Just my opinion, but I think that's the way to go if you need to shove something in your face real fast. Oh, and we've got a gift already. Maximiliano, thank you so much, Maximiliano. I really appreciate it.
What's his last name? Do you remember?
Visha?
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
That's a perfect.
Okay. You know what? I was so uncertain. I'm glad you called me out on it, hey, because I was so uncertain. I should remember it is Visha. Yeah, absolutely.
Visha.
So Maximiliano, thank you so. Visha,
yeah, perfect.
Visha, fantastic. Thank you so much. 5 readerships, and they go to Damon Cosmic, Jason T, Charlie Owen, BS Lewis, and Zysifer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And winner, chicken dinner for everyone. Fantastic. And Robin Webster, the sniper herself. Where are you? Gifts 1 membership. And I'll try and find who it went to because that's back a bit. It's Michael Bell. Congratulations, Michael Bell. You can thank Robin for that one. Thank you so much. I know you're over at the debate, Robin, and I really appreciated your support and really appreciated everything. But we'll start to get people in, and I do have the Muslim apologist. I'm not sure if he is actually here or not, but I will put him on. And as always, the opponents are always invited to the debate after show. Sorry. So I think that's only fair. We're not going to sit here and talk, without them being invited to talk. I think that's not fair in the slides. And again, I would like to apologize. I was given some information and maybe it was wrong. Maybe I misinterpreted it, but I do apologize for that. It probably was not the best forum, and I do acknowledge that.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Don't worry. I mean, this is something that the trolls on MDD have been repeating for the past 4 years anyway, and I'm still not in jail, so.
No, that's fair. That's fair, and we do have a legal system for that thing. So I don't want to, I don't want to propagate rumors and speculation. That is not something I want to do. So I do apologize. I think it was definitely a mistake on my part. But Max, I guess you're hosting. I wanna have a relaxing time. I don't want to think. So you're in charge, mate.
All right, but the one thing I like to ask, and I know Isa wanted to come in here, and a few other people wanted to join us too. So we'll take it slow. Let's give I want to ask you, since you were both part of the debate, how did you feel? How things went for you? Could you accomplish what you set out to do during the debate? And let's start with you, Mark, and then go to the Muslim apologist.
Yeah, I think so. I think I covered all the things that I wanted to. Unfortunately, just the nature of the proposition is Islam true. The burden of proof is definitely on the theists. I think it was good that they actually sort of had some pushback for atheism. I sort of in any debate, you can't just have the burden of proof entirely on one side. So I did like that they pushed back on that. I don't think, and apologies again, Muslim. I don't think that your argument's particularly strong. I think that resorting to things like intuition and things like morality and things like that, which have other explanations than a God, isn't particularly strong. I feel like you need to believe in the God first in order to assign those things to that God. So there was definitely a circular argument. I think Hussein did it, that I caught in there somewhere, about the Quran being true because it was written by God. It is a circular argument. So I had some issues with the arguments, but of course I did. I was on the other side.
Sorry, I'm having fun.
Yeah, I see it. Is it the
That's what
endless?
I always do. And Muslim apologies, tell me how you felt. Did you feel you accomplished your goal during the debate, and how how did you feel in general?
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Matt. So I don't know whether you guys know this, but I've been on MDD for quite some time. I've had my fair share of going into very nasty dialogues with atheists, the other side, especially Tijam, especially, and I think Godless Girl were wholly antagonistic. And I think this debate in particular was one of the best and one of the most civil dialogues that I've had on MTD so far. The other being this guy Randolph, I think. Yeah, he was a very nice gentleman from
Randolph
Canada.
is lovely.
Yes.
Yeah, Randolph.
Yeah,
He absolutely lovely.
he was a very fantastic gentleman, and I think you, Mark, and Dusty were also fantastic as well. And I really do appreciate
Thank you.
the experience of having this dialogue with you. Anyway, to clarify, I think you do realize that most of the talking was done by Hussein, and I didn't really get to talk much. Well, partly because you guys were dealing into philosophy and kalam, which I'm not. Honestly, I'm not, that's not my forte, and I just do not want to interject into something which I'm not familiar with or have no knowledge of. So mostly, what I would actually deal with are issues concerning real life world experiences and so on, and of course on Tawheed and this sort of things. And I think, Mark, to a certain extent, you are right. You actually need to believe in God first. We actually need to prove or convince you that God does exist first before we actually talk about these other things. Because in Islam, everything is interconnected. You can't actually talk about other aspects of Islam without actually justifying the existence of God. So without that convincing, with the skepticism that you have, of course it will be very difficult to convince you. But overall, I think it was a very civil, a very entertaining, very polite discussion. I really do enjoy it. Basically, I really do enjoy talking to you. And what I set out to achieve, I think perhaps I have, but probably not enough. Probably I can still achieve something by being here. Yeah, inshallah, which means God willing. Oh, so
All
by
right.
the way, yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
Isa is here. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now that we have Hussein, and I believe Dusty said that he would be joining too, but
Yes.
so far I've been asking, how did you feel with the debate? Did you feel that you set out to, that you accomplished all that you set out to do prior to the debate? So give us your thoughts on that, Hussein, if you will.
Yeah, I think I did well. I think I used the word like a lot less because apparently that's a common complaint. And I think I tried to show that like I have a coherent and logical process of why I think what I think, which is all I can reasonably convey. People can either take that for what they will and like think it's convincing, or they can't. So, and that's like I think that any debater or worldview, all they can do is put that out there.
All right, thank you very much. And I have to say that as an audience member, I really enjoyed the debate. It was very civil, and that's one of the things that I like the most. The last debate with T-Jump, we got into like some insults and stuff, and I don't feel when insults get thrown along, I don't think it adds to the conversation. And the debate yesterday was also quite civil, and I thoroughly enjoy that. So we can have these conversations, even if we have a fundamental misunderstanding of a fundamental disagreement on world views, that we can have civil conversations that could help people when they're struggling, if they're looking for insight or to get to know maybe some point of view that they didn't know before. I think that's a lot more productive. So, Isa, could you give me your opinions on the debate tonight? Your first thoughts?
Very good thoughts. Very insightful.
That's disapproval if ever I've heard it. You know, he's not even going to look at us. That's what's happening.
Isa great. Yeah. So hopefully we get that. Mark has posted the link in the side chat. I'm sorry, I missed the hand. It's right there. So if you want to come on stage and hang out with us, and we're going to talk about the debate. So now I will ask about the openings, and I usually ask people who weren't part of the debate. So I will start with Isa. Can you give us your thoughts on the opening for the Muslim side, please?
I don't think Isa's here.
Yeah, Isa might be busy. All right. Well, since I don't have anything but the debaters here, how did you?
What are your thoughts, Max? What are your thoughts? Let's ask you your thoughts.
Well, in the openings, I think
I call it modern atheist debate.
That's not true. Like, James is a Christian. That's the
no.
thing.
I don't mean it in that. I mean it in like purely demographics of like the viewers.
Oh, yeah. Possibly. But atheists seem to really like debates. We really like questioning stuff. We really like, you know, engaging in these topics. You know, I think that being questioning is not a bad thing. I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah. In the openings, I think that both sides did present their case. And one thing that came up yesterday is that we tend to not hear, after you've seen a bunch of these debates in a while, you don't see new arguments, and it's sometimes rehash. I got some interesting takes today, but it's always it always comes back to that. So when I go into these debates, I have that hope of hearing something new, something that I haven't heard before, and that is very rare when you go to the teleological arguments or the first cause, or it starts to get
no, it's formulaic. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but today some different, a little bit of twists and turns came up, and I do appreciate the conversation in many ways. Maybe it's not something that you say, oh, it's revolutionary and that will probably change my mind, but I think it's and if you give me 1 second, Gigi, I don't know what you're talking about, fake subscribers. Like, I don't know. If you want to talk to me, find me on Discord and come talk to me directly. I have no idea I know what you're talking about, but it's not the place here to talk about that. So that's what I'm going to say.
Who was that? Sorry.
Gigi. I don't know. It's some weird thing about Matters Now purchasing subscribers. I don't know.
Yeah. Probably best to keep that to Matters Now.
Yeah, it's
not relevant.
Yeah,
not really relevant.
So, in the chat, Mark, I don't know if you saw, but I was saying to Dusty and you, and obviously, like, it's a bit of propaganda or like rhetorical rhetoric, I should say. So, when I was bringing up basically in a way like what Nietzsche talks about, where like it's kind of a bit of what I believe, and then a kind of bit of like what Nietzsche talks about. Basically, to believe in no God, you have to, in a way, kill God, right? And it's like rid yourself of your human preconceived notions. And so he's basically talking about like, and that's why I said, in a way, atheism is like denying being your humanity. And like my point of that was that
Nietzsche, the same guy that said God is dead.
Yeah. He wrote the book like
he didn't believe in God.
No, yeah, I'm saying he didn't believe in God.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm saying like in his book, like thus called thus called Siddhutra or something. I forgot exactly how you say it. Anyways, it's just basically like it's talking about like killing your humanity. And it's like interesting that like this guy who's like basically an existentialist and an atheist is talking about killing your humanity. And I thought it was like a good, interesting point to what I'm saying is that like when you have Sam Harris and these other atheists basically like denying their own experience and they're denying the experience of all human beings, I think that's irrational. Because I
Well,
think I can trust my experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with Nietzsche. He kind of is, this fatalist approach that nothing matters if it doesn't matter long run is ridiculous. Like we can easily point to things that we know will end. Like, for instance, I've got a car. I know that car is going to stop running one day, but that doesn't make the car valueless. I disagree with Nietzsche on that. And I don't know many sort of philosophers that do agree with that brand of fatalism that hey, you've got to kill this idea of humanity in order to, be an atheist. I don't think that's true in the slightest. And the fact that a lot of atheists are secular humanists, they really do believe in helping humanity, shows that that is false. Like, I think you're taking the word of one person who is a fatalist and applying that to everybody, no matter who they believe.
Yeah, I understand you're not, and I understand many modern atheists are instead secular humanists. But I'm saying I believe, and I've told you this before, right? It's not a secret that absurdism and Nietzsche's ideas, so like Camus and Nietzsche, are the result of a world without God. Like that is the conclusion. Like if you follow this step, then this step, then this step, and this step. Like those are the logical conclusions when you believe that God doesn't exist. So I'm just saying, like, I agree with them if God isn't true. I'm willing to accept those conclusions. And that's what I'm saying. And my point as well was like, okay, but I agree, human beings and you, like that car is meaningful. And I think this like intuition human beings have in a sense shows that a God exists. Like you do perceive meaning in all these things. You do perceive these are congruent with scripture. These are congruent with Islam. Like it's not congruent with a strictly material or naturalist world where things don't actually have meaning and don't actually matter, and humanity doesn't matter.
I never said humanity doesn't matter, and I think humanity does.
No, I know you don't. I know you don't. I know you.
Hussein. The whole point is that you're sort of saying, well, intuitively you know this, and intuitions are not a reliable way to get at the truth. You can intuitively see that there is water there, or you can intuitively know that, hey, the earth is flat, but the evidence comes in that is not actually flat, or this intuition is not actually correct. So when we're looking for a reliable way to find the truth, intuition is a very poor way of doing it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong, right? You can have an intuitive thought and still be right. But the question is your epistemology. Are you using a reliable way to come to the truth? And just saying, hey, it is intuitive it's not reliable, because intuitively you can think all kinds of things. And people can intuit, depending on what their culture is, different things. Like, for instance, moral intuition. Some people intuitively think that it's wrong to have a certain marriage under an age. That the French have less age than for relations than other people do. Like, our intuition is not a reliable way to find the truth. Using your rationality is. So when you go back to, oh, these intuitions say this, it's kind of like saying, well, I feel like it's true. And that's, why would we even begin to listen to that?
Yeah, I wasn't just saying that though. Like, I'm not saying it's just intuition. I'm saying it intuitively makes sense. I'm saying it philosophically makes sense. Probability, it makes sense. Like we have these other proofs, like through prophecy, through miracles, through mass transmission, through human experience. Like it's all these things encompassing. And that's why I'm saying, in a way, it's like, I understand what you're saying, but to me, that is just a denial of like all human experience in it per se. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, you can think that, but other people will intuitively say, hey, it's intuitive to me that there is no God. And all of the sort of arguments that you give, they've got these fatal flaws in them, which I've been pointing out. and you've sort of said, well, it's not this one thing, it's these other things. And then when I point out the flaws in the philosophy that you brought up, like the kalam and like the contingency argument and all of these things, these philosophical arguments, you go to, well, it's other things like the prophecies and all of this. And when I go, well, hang on a second, prophecies aren't strong evidence either, because they're so vague, and because, with the tower that you said, oh, they'll build tall buildings, you're assuming a lot about what he meant. You're putting the word skyscraper in there for a reason. When I point this out, you're like, oh no, it's the other thing. So you're sort of doing this dance where wherever I pull up problems with what you're bringing up, you say it's all the other things.
No, but it's not.
The problem is, when you go to those other things, we find problems with them as well. And the question in essence becomes, how do you falsify a God?
Yeah, so you said it's a problem, for example, for the Kalam argument, because it only points to a first cause, right? And I'm saying, sure, that's a problem. But then you also have, in conjunction, the contingency argument, which explains that the first cause must be something that is internal, outside of time, a necessary being. Okay, so it's like, it's not just this one argument. I think it's both arguments in conjunction. So when you put all this massive amount of evidence, you're building the case for God.
Yeah, so a massive amount of really weak evidence doesn't add up to strong evidence.
Okay.
Right. I could get all of the statistical things that I need and sort of say, hey, statistically, they're in the right demographic, they're in the right place, they're in, they've got all this sort of weak evidence. It's called circumstantial. It doesn't add up to a strong case against someone committing a murder that they fall into all of these things. So when you're looking at evidence, you can't just say, oh, well, there's a ton of weak evidence that makes it strong. No, you've still got a ton of weak evidence. And stuff like with the contingency I brought up, that the universe may not be contingent on anything. It might be the necessary thing. Now, you've gone on to say, hey, it's a being, it's an agent, it's this God. You haven't demonstrated that. You've just claimed it to be true, right? How do you show that is true?
Yeah, I'm saying a logical argument is a proof of showing something's true, just like the law of non-contradiction can be proven.
No, it's not
philosophically true or valid.
So there's two things in syllogisms. There's validity and soundness, right? Validity is whether the syllogism or the argument is logic, right? It's the logic of it.
Yes, I understand.
Logically follows.
Something can be valid and not true, or sound.
Correct. It can be valid and not sound, right? So you can have a valid argument that's perfectly logical, and unless you demonstrate why the premises are sound, it does not reach the conclusion. You have to demonstrate that the premises are sound. And that's what you're lacking. And you've gone, well, it's logical. Yeah, but it's also, you can make a logical argument that like the Achilles thing, that Achilles fires an arrow and it never reaches the tortoise because the arrow travels and then the tortoise travels and then the arrow travels and then so it'll never reach the tortoise. That's a logical argument. The problem is, back in reality, we're having turtle soup for dinner. Like, it doesn't actually work. It's not sound. And sorry to interject, just 1 second on your response. I've got Robin for $10. Thank you so much, Robin. An angel, as always. I mean metaphorically, not literally, of course. Oh, sorry. I missed one. Yahooligan. I'm so sorry, Robin. I'm going to put you on the back burner. Yahooligan has a question for $5 Canuckian. The story of the boy lost in the woods picking a direction and finding his friend, was that not an example of no free will?
No. So like Islamically, we believe, well, there's three schools of thought. There's people who believe in no free will. There's people who believe in absolute free will, but Orthodox Islam believes in compatibilism. Yeah, I can't talk today.
It's okay.
So I wouldn't say it's an example of, so there are choices we make that are moral choices, and that's free. That is a part of free will. There are certain things that we just instinctively do or like that may not be free fully, and that's perfectly fine. That would be part of like a compatibilist thing. So ultimately, no free will. I mean, I don't agree with it. Okay.
Well, I mean, I've got issues with free will being compatible with predetermination. of a God who's omniscient, knowing all outcomes. But I mean, we can raise that later. I do want to get to Robin, but I hope that answers your question. Yahooligan, who is a great friend of the channel, absolutely. He's on the wavelength, and if one of the mods could link that, I would really be appreciative. But Robin Webster, the angel, the metaphorical angel of Mark Reed atheism, for $10. I don't deny my experience. I just don't attribute it to an invisible being. We have very sufficient natural explanations that do not require we accept claims without good evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I just reject naturalism. Like, so obviously, and I had some things about it, but I would need to bring it up. And I would probably need to prepare a bit more, but there's basically some things about how there's like the hard problem of consciousness. There was like a person who made the evolutionary case against naturalism. And then there's the opinion of basically, oh man, what was it exactly? I think the evolutionary one, I think it was like, this may be wrong. I may be wrong, but I think it was something basically along the lines of, if we were evolutionally just selected for this value and it's more for survival and not for truth, then basically you can't know what truth is, and therefore like both atheism and theism would be like rendered like basically useless. Like there's no such thing as truth. You wouldn't know what's truth. You know, so and then in that way naturalism wouldn't be true as well. Like you have no logical reason to believe in naturalism either. So it basically becomes like a absurdity or extreme skepticism. So
yeah, I would disagree, but I hope you got the answer to your question. Muslim apologist, do you have anything to add? Or Isa? I noticed that Hussein stealing the spotlight again.
I know, dude, get me out.
Well, I said to Dusty before the debate, I go, I'll let you take the lead and do most of the talking, and then of course I just like took over. It's terrible. I feel
oh,
so
he didn't have the stream link, by the way. I just emailed it to him.
Really?
Hopefully...
it was in the chat. Yeah, maybe he didn't know where to find it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you got it to him?
Yeah, I just sent it to him.
Okay.
So
but we were talking about how the introductions went, and I screwed up my introduction. I didn't screen share properly. Well, I did screen share properly. It's just it was stopped, and I didn't realize it stopped. So yeah, I absolutely had a disaster of a time in the intro. I really did.
So I think, hey all, peace and blessings. Good to see y'all.
Hey, Isa, I'm glad you're actually talking now. It's
yes,
it's always good to see. Good
to see you too. Yeah, we have a long history, Mark. It's good to see you on this channel and have a conversation. I have a difficulty with the question: is Islam true? Why? How do we define what truth is? I think it can be very relative. I mean, you could say Islam is true to Muslims. It's just a very difficult thing, because what is our standard of truth? We're talking about...
I knew you'd go down this route. I knew you'd go down here. Like, what does it mean for Islam? Well, does Islam make claims?
Sure, but you could say these are spiritual claims. They don't have to be literal claims. And I think faith claims don't have to fit literalistic, naturalistic claims. I think that's the issue, is like, if we're holding to naturalistic claims, then that's a different space. But I don't think the Quran is even making... This is what we talked about this with Nadir Ahmed. I don't... We need to take that position. Nadir wants to take that position, but we don't have to take that position of saying, well, the Quran is saying literally, it's trying to teach embryology. We don't have to go down that route. And I don't think that that's useful to understanding Islamic tradition in general.
Yeah, I think that it does, because Islam is giving statements about the ontology, or the reality of our world. I guess when I say world, I don't mean our planet, but the world around us. So I think that when it does make those statements, when it makes these truth claims about the status and the state of reality, then it is either ontologically or in reality true or in reality not true. You know, did God create the universe, which is one of the pillars of Islam? That is not a sort of, you know, faith or a belief claim anymore. That is a statement of fact about our reality, and that will either be true or false. So I get what you mean. Like, what does it mean for a religion to be true? Like, it's true, people follow it. But I think when you get down to it, when you're asking if a religion is true, you're asking whether the central claims of that religion are in alignment with the reality around us, like what they're saying did actually happen.
But I think the most important thing, if we're going to argue, let's take the position of Orthodox Islam. You know, even it can be Ahlus Sunnah Jama'ah or Shia Tali. It doesn't really matter. The most important thing is the next world. This world isn't that important. It's the next world that's important. This world is just kind of a testing ground that takes you, and if you pass the exam in this world, for better or worse language, it's the next world that has the most importance, and that's where the value is. So I don't know. I don't know if really any claims about this world are of that much importance.
That's sort of going down almost like a solipsism route, or sort of a simulation route. It's kind of weird. Even if you want to constrain it to a test reality, in lieu of any better term I can think of, but a test reality where we're tested, it will still have central claims to that test reality. Like, you're sort of begging the question here, where you're sort of saying, hey, it's a test bed reality, if you will, that you know, that the claims of the Quran are all already true, that it is a God that created it in order to test us. So I don't see that as a particularly strong argument, because whether or not it's a test reality, still the claims that the Quran is making have to be in accordance with that reality, whether it is in fact a real reality or the you know, highest order reality, or whether it is just a test reality. So it still doesn't exempt, you know, the fact that it might be a test reality, maybe that's true. That doesn't exempt them from taking the claims that God did all of this and it is a test reality. And that is a huge claim.
But I think one thing that we have to be careful of is that one standard that we're seeing that's very popular is this kind of authority standard, which is a very hyper-literalistic position where everything we see is literalistic. And I don't think that that is exactly how the transmission of the Quran. It's operating on a spiritual operation, and it uses conceptual elements of the world, but it's not bound to that. And I think that's the issue, is that if we're kind of converting the Quran into a naturalistic perspective, and I think that becomes a problematic space, because I don't think we're fairly.
Well, what do you mean by spiritual? Like, because I've never encountered anything spiritual. I don't really even have a good definition of what a spiritual reality would actually be. How can we falsify this spiritual reality, and how can we gather evidence for it if it is out of our reach in some way?
So I think it would take a different kind of evidentiary space. It's not necessarily something that you can test by naturalistic means. And I think that's the difficulty with this. This is why I think this is a very difficult kind of conversation to have, because you have people with different kinds of understandings of what evidence means to them. You know,
okay.
For a religious person, what is evidence is different than to the person who is secular and takes naturalistic evidence. You can't really compare these two kinds of evidences and say, well, it's just hard, because it's like an impasse of what the standard is.
But I mean, evidence, I would say, is basically any fact or series of facts or group of facts that point to one conclusion rather than another conclusion. You know, it points exclusively to one answer would be evidence. So if you have an anecdote, it points to one conclusion. it's not very strong evidence. And the way that I would say is that we need, it's not just evidence that we require, it's strong evidence, which is rigorous. So rigor is taking all possible answers into consideration, and it's got to be reliable, that it can repeat itself, kind of thing, that like every time we sort of try to test it, it performs exactly the same. It's got to have sort of this repeatability to it. When anybody does the same test, they get the same answer. But the problem is that no one's come up with any, like, not just scientific methodology, but any methodology to, in fact, test a spiritual world. And everybody's using these techniques which seem to involve their beliefs and arguments and these sort of really ephemeral and non-solid things that lead to vastly different conclusions everywhere. So how can we possibly know whether you're right about the spiritual world and Allah and all of this kind of religious stuff, or the person who, is engaged in using crystals to heal people spiritually is the correct one? Because they both have the same amount of evidence for them.
Yeah, I understand the point. You're saying, like, how do we have the evidentiary stuff? And I want to go back to that point. You mentioned anecdotes. Well, for a lot of people who have faith, I've been around, because that's my work. I'm a chaplain, so I'm mostly with people who really believe. I'm also with secular folks too, but primarily I go to people who, they're preparing to transition and leave the world, and whatever that looks like, if there's a soul or not, depending on where a person's belief is on that. This is a very important thing. And these anecdotes are everything. It's not weak for them. It's far stronger than the scientist who has the repeatable experiments. That doesn't hold as much weight as that spiritual experience that they have. And how do we define what spiritual means? The way I'm gonna define it is it's a transcendent experience. It's an experience that is beyond, at least for the person. Maybe you can test it and say, hey, there's some kind of brain action and there's serotonin and dopamine and go into neurotransmitters. You could probably go into all of those explanations, but for that person, what that means to them, it's something that's beyond their normal body-mind experience. And it could be a very powerful epiphany. It could be this very powerful, overwhelming experience that they have, And when you brought up the crystals, I don't think that to me that's not important. Like, if they're having that spiritual experience, it doesn't deny that Islam is true. Maybe that experience that they have with the crystals is true too. But the point is, we're saying, is Islam not true? And I don't know how we can prove it's not true. You can say, well, okay, unless we say, well, the Quran has to be literally bound to these things, I don't think it has to be. Then I don't think there's a real way that you can completely falsify it.
But there's the crux of the problem. If you're going to say anytime somebody feels like an experience is transcendent and has these feelings of transcendence, and that means that we have to assume that the person kidnapped by aliens, claims he was kidnapped by aliens, is true too. If we want to be intellectually consistent about these claims, we also have to assume that the person who, took drugs and saw a giant attack the city that's true as well. Like, where does it end that we say, hey, if you believe you have had a transcendent experience, then that is true for you? Yeah. We know some of these things are absolutely not true. And there are claims in the Quran that we know is absolutely not true. The moon was never split in half, ever. It has never happened. That is fundamentally an untrue statement. So these claims that are being made, and don't get me wrong, look, Isa, you're welcome to believe anything you want, but when you start to make factual claims about the reality around us, and I've got no reason to think that this is some kind of test reality for any god, you can't just sort of say, hey, people have had transcendent experiences. because A, they don't line up with your religion most of the time, because most people are not Muslims, and B, you can't actually demonstrate that to anybody. You know, like a person might have gone to do meditation and had a transcendent experience of Vishnu. That's now in conflict with what you think is true and your transcendent experience. So those two things cannot be like, both of them can't be true. That Vishnu created the universe and that Allah created the universe. Those can't be both true. And if they can, then logic kind of breaks down for you know, the law of non-contradiction.
I was on a debate earlier today, and it was a Christian against a Christian presuppositionalist in the topic that presuppositionalism hurts Christianity. And it was DB. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with him from the MDD Discord. And DB made some really made some really good arguments on why these presuppositionalist arguments hurt the position that you put them on. And one of those was the idea that the presuppositionalist was saying, well, if you don't hold to my worldview, then you can't formalize logic. But right. I kept thinking, and I proposed to him in the after show in the afternoon, well, maybe we can take the laws of logic as being just descriptive of the world around us. We establish the law of non-contradiction because it's something that happens. Like this phone, it will never be this lighter, and the camera is messing up, but you know, they're not prescriptive, they are descriptive of the world that we have around us. I am myself, I'm not another person. And in that sense, I wanted to ask Hussein, what do you think of that? Because you grounded a lot of what you said in logic, and you kind of went along those lines, saying that you kind of need God to acknowledge logic.
Yeah, pretty much so. Like one of the names is like of God in Islam is al-Haq, which is like the truth. And they use that to mean like the reality, like basically, from what I understand. And there's like a Sufi tradition as well about that, and Sunni Islam, and they talk about that basically, in a way, everything is grounded through God. So like logic, all these rules, and then Muhammad Hijab even talked about that. Like, well, we see the effect of gravity, and that proves gravity. Like we see the effect of a lawgiver, and that proves in a way God. Basically, does that make sense? Like we see a logical world, we see a stable world, like we see all these things, and these are evidence of a God, pretty much.
But do you understand how I can frame it as, okay, we have seen this that holds true across all of human history, that contradictions in the world, in the natural world, they don't happen. Do you see how I can just accept that as an axiom and I don't need God for that justification?
Yeah, there are axioms that I don't, that both people can agree, like both the atheist and a theist can agree with, that exist. I mean, like I was saying, like when we talk about language, like we both have to, me and Mark have to both accept like what I mean by the words I'm using. Like all these things presuppose we have to agree to like certain meanings
Sure.
in order to do anything. So,
but they don't presuppose a God. That's the whole point. That say the laws of logic, we can both presuppose that they're descriptive of the real world, and you can presuppose they come from a God. But I've got no reason to grant that presupposition. However, you know, you can reject my presupposition of the laws of logic, but then you've got a problem, because when you say, Mark, what are you talking about if you're not using the laws of logic? So the problem comes that you're presupposing that these laws and morality come from a God. And while I sort of presuppose that they exist, I'm not taking the extra step of saying, hey, they come from a God. I'm not making that claim. So you have a burden to prove that it does in fact come from a God.
Yeah, I understand what your point is, but what I'm saying is that, so the claim is of the theist, right, is that morality does come from a God, for it to be objective, right? That's the classic copy paste. Okay. And then when you are admitting that basically like morality is relative, right? You are in a way admitting that morality actually doesn't exist, and we're just pragmatically using these words to describe things we like and don't like flavors of flavors of ice cream. So, and what I'm saying is like you are basically like then admitting that it doesn't exist, and so that's what I'm saying. In order to believe these things that all human beings believe in, basically, and may take for granted, like choice, morals, things like that, you have to presuppose God, because without them, we're admitting that they aren't real.
No, because, for example, we can get to a sort of objective morality based on an evolutionary perspective. We can see this in animals. Piranhas, they won't attack each other, but if you put your hand in the piranha tank, they will eat you. But they don't eat each other, and animals don't eat each other, and they generally don't kill each other. They have certain fights, but those are kind of more instinctive mechanisms of, getting a mate or fighting for food.
And capuchin monkeys throw out individuals that lie. If an individual calls that a snake's near and in order to sneak more food, and they're not being truthful, they're thrown out of the troop.
And they punish the ones who steal, and they have a sort of if one monkey gives the other they will gives the other food, they will give them sort of sexual favors. There's a lot of this in nature, so we can get to a lot of this stuff through the naturalistic lens.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, like, isn't an appeal to nature a fallacy? And then that's the first one. Okay. So so then two,
because an appeal to nature is saying because it exists in nature, it is good, right? So there's all these behaviors that humans exhibit that may not be good, even though they're evolutionary. That like, for instance, our fear reaction is a fight or flight sort of thing. A lot of aggressiveness stems from a fear reaction. People are usually acting upon a fear when they engage in aggressiveness. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing just because it's naturally arrived at. It can cause a lot of problems. So that's the naturalistic fallacy, not, hey, this is where it comes from.
So my point was that Max was saying is that, like, oh, well, we can objectively know morality by studying humans. And then one of my questions on that in a prior debate to you guys was that, okay, sure, but like, what if human beings, for example, like intrinsically have, there were studies that basically show that psychologically human beings have like disgust reactions, and basically a lot of our morals just straight comes from disgust reactions, basically evolutionary. And so the argument could be made then is like, okay, well, human beings for some reason naturally find homosexual relationships disgusting, and then therefore, and they've shown that they have disgust reaction. And I'm not trying to be offensive.
Okay, no. Okay, so I want to address that because you're going through so many points at once, Hussein. I want to slow you down so we can actually talk about the morals. I'm going to have to start taking notes again because you're going through so many topics all at once.
Sure.
So moral intuition. Yeah, and let's look at moral intuition. And it's not the moral intuition of everybody that homosexuality is disgusting. And you can point to ancient Greek days when it was absolutely fine. Like, there was absolutely no stigma about it whatsoever. In fact, there was the people that really hurt the Sparta and the Spartans were the Golden Band of Thebes, which was a fighting force made up of homosexual couples. Like, this idea that it's intuitive to you doesn't mean it's intuitive to everybody. A lot of intuition comes from culture, for instance. And let's look at that disgust at things. Like, we have to train people to say, cut off a gangrenous limb, for instance. We don't want to do it inherently. That's our moral intuition. That's bad. But we know, looking at the consequences, if somebody has a gangrene infesting their limb, that actually might be a good thing to do, even though it disgusts us up front. Getting rid of dead bodies is a really good thing to do, but it does intuitively disgust us to touch dead bodies. Now, there has to be something other than your first moral reaction in order to show whether something is good or bad. There has to be. Just touching on, you made this claim, and I really want to press you on this claim that morals come from a God. So let's throw a little, I'm sorry, Muslim apologists, let's throw a bit of philosophy in the works here. Does God choose what is moral and what is not moral and deliver it to us? Or does the morality come from some other source and God is just relaying that information?
Well, we believe that God is all good, all knowing, all knowledge, all knowledgeable. So morality comes from God. God sets the standards. God defines what is morality. God, of course, within the nature of, within the capabilities of human nature, obviously. So So, like for example, you shall not murder. Basically, the 10 Commandments is basically one of the. We by the way, we Muslims also believe in the 10 Commandments, in some form or
sorry,
another.
I really want to find out what you're saying. So, does God say what is moral? So, can God say in the future, this is not actually moral? That's got to change. Like
we also believe. Well, we also believe that what.
Could it have been moral at one point, and then God says, no, it's not moral anymore? Or is that something that is from, God's nature that God can't change?
Well, everything is, we believe that once the Quran has been revealed, everything has already been set out. So if you want to talk about slavery, we actually don't believe that slavery is immoral or moral. It's just an institution, basically. And the Quran doesn't specifically forbid slavery, but however, there are certain guidelines to how do you treat a slave, how do you conduct your ethics as a master to the slave, and so on. How do you ensure that the slave's well-being is preserved? And in Islam, there is indeed a provision where a slave can be manumitted for whatever reason, for religious reasons, for example.
Slavery, because it was just an example. Okay.
I need to add context to that. Sorry. So basically, just to cut a long story short, in Islam, slave, like the example that you gave, slavery is neither moral or immoral. It's the same thing with young marriages. It's neither moral or
let's
immoral.
Get off slavery, because it's just an example, and get on to the source of morals. Does God determine and say this is immoral? Just say, could God determine that eating pork is okay in the future? Or is it just naturally in his nature and he's conveying it that eating pork is wrong?
God mentions in the Quran that eating pork is forbidden, and that's it. It ends there.
Yes, but is he deciding that is the case? Can he change his mind about that? Okay.
No.
So you don't have objective morality if he can change his mind, right? It's subjective. Yes. And the subject that is deciding it is God.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have objective morality.
Can
I would say, I wouldn't put it that way, I guess. I don't think it's subjective. I think it's actually objective, because everything has already been laid out by God. Okay. So the standards have already been... No, it cannot change.
It can't change.
No.
So if God came down here and said, I am changing it so you guys can eat pork, that he would be wrong. He can't do that.
Has that happened? No, right? So no.
No.
Yes,
I'm saying,
happened.
Is it possible?
And we already have an example of this happening, because God created the animals, and then for some reason, he gave us provision that this specific animal you're not supposed to eat. And that makes no sense. That makes no sense. It's what changing his mind.
I have not come across any provision in Islam, especially where pork was forbidden and then suddenly it was allowed. However, there are...
No, but God creates all the animals, right?
Right.
So... But then kind of says, I created
Not
this animal, but maybe this animal you shouldn't eat it.
not everything's edible. So yeah. So I mean, it's
Everything, yes, you can literally eat anything. Yes, you can eat
So
any
the-
animal.
Do
yeah, but
abrogations exist in
yeah.
Islam? Do
Yes, it
abrogations
does.
exist?
It does. It's actually a very it's a
What?
actually a very voluminous and long topic to talk about abrogation. So yeah. So it's
Right.
actually
So
going to be very,
when it
yeah,
happens, the circumstances change and the
for the
teachings
human,
change accordingly.
for the
Yes.
human community. Yeah. So like for example, let's say 1,000 years ago or before the coming of Islam, if you look at the Bible, especially, you will find that alcohol was permitted
Right.
in reasonable amounts, right? In fact, wine was used as part of religious ceremonies.
Sure.
But when Islam came, Islam forbade the drinking of alcohol and basically
Nope.
wine as well.
Mm.
So
I,
human conditions change. You see,
There's a bit of
yeah.
sort of background noise for you, Muslim apologist, but
It's like
Yeah,
really,
sorry,
really,
my
I'll
son
get
is
you in.
watching his my
I'll
son is
get
watching
you
his
in.
TV. Sorry.
I'll get you in 1 second, Leo. It's just you've said that morals can't change and morals won't change. God won't change morals. But you've just outlined that alcohol used to be not permitted morally, and then that changed. So you've
Yes.
got a contradiction there.
It's not a contradiction because humans' conditions change. Okay, human circumstances
Yes.
change to others. How we live now in this modern contemporary world is totally different from our ancestors. Okay,
Sure.
But that's a
so
change.
obviously, yes,
But that's a change. So morals can change.
No, so
We're
he's
saying
saying
human
change in
conditions
context.
change morals.
No,
God
no,
changes morals
change-
based on human conditions.
no. I mean, what I mean is, once the Quran has been revealed, there cannot be any change after that. But before the Quran was revealed, there were definitely laws that God had sent, which changed throughout the period. Like in the Bible, for example, I just gave you an example there. So there were many.
This is really weird to me because you're basically saying God handed out a law, and then based on the circumstance, God changed that law and abrogated it,
Yes.
canceling it out. Which
Yes.
I'm not saying that's contradictory, right? I'm not saying that's inherently contradictory. I understand what you're saying, but that is contradictory to your statement that there is no way that God can change morals. Like he obviously has, because you had him hand out something of what you ought to do and then change it to the opposite of what he originally said.
I guess that
there's rules that are
so-
not morals though. Like the morals, for example, if you look at like the red thread of Islam, basically how all the monotheists and the priests and stuff are connected, the major rules have never changed. Like that would be the point, is that all the actual morality part, you could say, has not changed. Minor rulings has changed. So for example, like the pork thing doesn't really actually work because technically there's always been like rules for forbidden animals to eat. But a good example would be like one of the prophets, I think it was David, was able to bow because it used to be like a sign of respect. But human beings have corrupted certain notions, and so like when Islam came, it like abrogated certain things. Like, so we're not really supposed to like bow to other human beings. Like the point is you're only bowing to God, because initially you were bowing to God and people recognized God, but then God, knowing human beings and their changes and their corruptions, like he's providing them. Now they're ready for further rules, in a sense. Does that make sense? But that's not like a moral rule. That's just like a way to practice Islam.
That
Like,
is immoral. What you ought to do is morals. It's a code of conduct is what it is. But I really want to go to Leo because I've cut him off
Yes,
like 3
sorry.
times already. I know that drives Leo
Yeah,
crazy.
I
So-
think the point here about morality and God has already been made by Mark when he pointed out pretty cleanly that if morality is fundamentally rooted in God's stances, his beliefs, his desires, his aims, his goals, then morality would be dependent on God's stances. And a stance-dependent morality is literally what like a subjective morality is. So the only other option is that moral truths hold independent of stances. But that's going to include God's stances. And so then there are things that hold true independently of what God thinks, which is not something that a lot of Christians or Muslims are going to want to grant. So it's either you grant that there are moral truths which hold true independently of God, or these truths are dependent on God's stances,
But can
in
you
which case
re-explain
you're dealing with a
why they
subjectivist morality.
can you re-explain why would they have to be independent of God? Like, so when God throughout
Because
all
that's
religion,
what moral realism is. Stance independent moral truths. And that means independent of God's stances.
no, it's independent of human beings. Not, it doesn't have to be independent.
Well, but then
of
it's
God.
not truly a realist morality, because there's a
How
set
does-
of stances that it depends on.
What do you mean by can you define what you mean by realist?
I
Moral
define
realism.
moral realism the way that all philosophers do. Stance independent moral truths. The view that there are stance independent moral truths.
Basically,
Moral
it just means
truths hold
objective,
true
the same.
independent of
Yeah.
of
Okay.
stance.
Okay.
Just
So
means-
when
Moral, hang on, just one second. Moral realism just means objective morals, like ones that don't rely on any stance from a person. And moral anti-realists say, hey, they're not things that are outside of stances, like people's positions on things. That's just all that it means: moral subjectivity and moral objectivity.
Okay. So when you say, for example, like all religions that have professed to believe into the one God, right? Believed, for example, that like human sacrifice is wrong, except for pagan religions, right? So if that never changed, that how is that a problem, I guess? And how would that be? And why does that have to be independent of God?
I don't think I understand what it is you're asking me here.
Okay, so you're saying if there's a moral truth, you're asserting, or for some reason saying that if there's an objective moral, the moral would have to be independent of God, but God is the one who's objective and outside of us giving the moral command. So, and what I'm saying is like paganism, for example, did allow sacrifice of human beings, but that's a deviance. No like monotheistic preacher or wisdom person, whatever. I'm so fried. The like fried my brain.
Sage. I get what you mean. Sure.
Yes, sage, whatever you want to say. Okay, none of them have ever said that was okay. So God's stance isn't changing. That's an objective truth that was held by God throughout time, and He's always preached that through His preachers. Does that make sense?
You're sort of. I think I'm following. So if we're saying that it is immoral, that one ought not sacrifice other humans, and that's never changed, that doesn't remove the fact that the truth of that is only in virtue of God's stance on human sacrifice. Or I could ask you, is the truth, the objective truth of this, if it's objective, that truth that you ought not sacrifice other humans would then hold true independent of God's stance? Then it's objective. But if it's dependent on God's stance, which is what it sounds like, God is the one saying this because of his stances on human sacrifice, then it's dependent on a stance. It doesn't matter that it's God's stance. It's the stance of a person nonetheless, and thus you're dealing with subjectivist morality.
But God
Or
isn't
an
a
agent,
person.
And that agent is really what.
Did
they
you
are
just say
meant to
God's not a
No.
person? Oh, so God doesn't have
Not
thoughts.
like a
Okay.
person like us. Excuse me. Like I
Well,
mean, I'm sorry.
then what
I'm
kind of
just
person
saying-
do you mean? I don't know of any other person like
yeah,
us.
if you mean like agent, sure, whatever. I understand what you're saying.
Well, I just take a
Mm.
person to be something that possesses personhood. Does God not possess personhood?
Well, I think we're getting bogged down in Hussein sort of, he interpreted as human kind of thing.
Yeah. I didn't want to.
Oh, if you hear me use the word person, I mean person as in something that
I
possesses
understand you're talking about
personhood.
like the
Yeah.
philosophical
So
way.
I consider cats persons and dogs to be persons
Huh.
Okay.
because they possess
So
personhood.
I think that also, if it is independent from God's stance, then the question must be asked is, where is it coming from if it's independent to the mind of God? Because the mind of God is apparently all of God. That is sort of what dictates everything. So you can sort of, at that point, it gets into some weird territory. Like, if our reality is dependent on God's stances, is our reality objective at that point, or stance independent?
I think I just read this before the debate where they're talking about it, where they said like not everything is reality isn't what it seems, and that there's things that we don't see that could be real. And I forgot what it was talking about. It was like something about like physics and stuff, and then
Higher
like
dimensions or something.
yeah. Basically, there's things outside our reality. So what we perceive, we take as like
What?
pragmatic reality, but it's not actually the full truth.
I think there might be things outside our perceived reality, but I wouldn't say there's things outside of, the actual reality, because then they wouldn't be
I don't know
real.
what that means. But what does it even mean
The
to
higher
be
dimensions
outside
are,
of space-time?
the higher dimensions are also hypothetical. They're not actual yet. We don't have
Okay.
any evidence.
Well,
That is
for
true.
Kate, Leo, they can say outside our local presentation of space-time.
Yeah, but that's not
They-
what I'm referring to. I'm talking about outside of the whole of physical reality. I don't know what that
Okay, wait,
means.
can you
That's like
explain-
saying
can you-
north of
No,
the
I
North
don't know what
Pole.
it means either. Yeah.
Okay, I
or-
apologize. Let
yeah.
me just go back to your morality question. So, can you explain? So, you're saying that when we say God delivers a prophet and the prophet gives a moral stance through God, you're saying basically that that's dependent on God giving that moral command to human beings, and you're saying that's not objective because it depends on God.
What I'm
that
saying
Well,
is that
Am I
any
summarizing what you're
truth-
saying?
No, I'm saying that any truth, moral truth declared by God in Islam or Christianity, if one happens to be a Christian, the truth of that moral statement is dependent on God's stance concerning whatever the statement is about. So if the statement is murder is wrong and it's objectively wrong, well, the truth of the statement that murder is wrong is dependent on God's particular stances on murder. Now, if you want to say, no, it's not, it's a stance independent truth, then it's true independent of even God's stances. And that just seems contrary to how God is described in parts of Christianity, particularly in Islam, because I think Islam really holds to the idea of aseity, but maybe I'm misremembering. And that seems to violate this idea of aseity, if there are truths which hold independent of God's stances.
Okay, so if I say it is dependent on God, what's the
Then
issue?
you're
I
dealing
guess?
with a subjectivist morality.
Why
And
is it
I
subjective?
personally don't see that as an issue, but everybody else does.
But why would
Yeah.
that be subjective?
It's subjective because it's dependent on a stance, and that's what subjective morality means. Stance
Yeah, but-
dependent moral truths.
Okay, so when you say that everything is subjective, then
Well, I think all moral truths are stance dependent. Yes. I'm a
Well,
moral
okay,
anti-realist.
wait. What is that? But isn't that just sophistry? Like you're
No.
basically saying like because you had to make a choice on like murder being right or wrong, it's subjective because there's a stance.
No.
So
what
when
I'm
you ever
saying is,
ask
I'm
anything,
talking about
when
the
you ask
truth.
anything, it's subjective.
The
Hold it.
truth
Let's
of moral
let's
claims.
just let Hussein finish. The truth of moral claims, right? Okay, sorry.
No, I'm just not understanding. I guess like the point here. So you're saying that, and maybe I need to go unpack that or learn more about that. Is there
I
like
can tell you what the point is.
is there a
Yeah.
category of this? Like,
Yeah.
why
it's
are you
referring
saying
to-
because? So you're saying there's an option, and then the
Well,
option makes things
Hussein,
subjective.
if
This
you
is what I
want to
tried to
read up on
clarify
this,
earlier.
read up on something called the Euthyphro dilemma. Right? It's very old, from ancient Greek days, and it is very, very, very. It's a definite logical problem with morals or these morals being derived from the whole point is, does God decide what is right and wrong, or does he just
I'm not
pass
running a
along what is
Euthyphro.
right and wrong? Well, it's kind of similar.
It's similar, but it's not the same. What I'm referring to is the notion of the truth of moral claims. There's two positions broadly in meta ethics on the truth of moral claims. They're true independent of what we think about them, independent of our stances. That's what we mean when we say something is objectively true, that the truth is independent of the stances that agents have on it. Or it's stance dependent. It's subjectively true. Its truth depends on the subject and how it interprets this, whatever is being considered. So if morals come from God, I just take that to mean that morality is dependent, the truth of moral claims is dependent on God's stances about those claims. In which case you are just then dealing with the subjectivist morality. That's what it means for morality to be subjective. Or you're dealing with an objective morality, but that would entail those moral truths holding true independent of the agent, or rather of the stances of agents. And that just entails God. God doesn't somehow get off the hook because he's God. And then at that point, you're dealing with truths which hold independent of God. And that seems to off-put a lot of Christians and Muslims. Maybe some are willing to accept that, but it doesn't seem like most are. And that's the problem I'm getting at. If morals, quote unquote, come from God, then they're just going to definitionally be subjective.
And the problem is that we can't talk to God. So we can't get a clarification. We can't get this thing sorted out. So it becomes a problem, because what if things have changed? And we have examples in all of the holy texts of God changing his mind about stuff. So how can we do a proper measure of what is true, what is moral, what's immoral?
So I think it's a really difficult question. We're talking about God. We're not talking about a person who, like, does God really change God's mind? I think this is an important question that we have to consider. Or is this all a part of God's plan and we're just limited humans and we don't understand the master plan that's going on? And I think that's just something that let's steelman the idea. If God is real, what does that mean? What does that framework look like?
Yeah, and the Quran does mention, to what Issa's saying, it says like that God, for example, before Adam was put on the world, he provided him knowledge, and then he slowly prepared him for the world, and he's preparing basically humanity through generations. So it's like a refinement of the human spirit.
1 second. How did he prepare Adam when he wasn't even a thing? Like, he made him from the dirt, didn't he?
No. Like, what I'm saying, he prepared Adam to go to earth. Like, so the angels, when they say, like, I know what you conceal, God teaches Adam the names of things, basically teaching him knowledge. And so he's showing to the angels that human beings are different from angels. They have this capacity, they have choice, they have will, they have knowledge, they can learn. And then he's basically, and then he allows the Adam to roam through paradise, essentially. And then they have the thing with like Adam and Eve and like the Satan. And he's basically saying, like, you'll now go into heaven, or to the earth, where the earth is a test, and let it be known, basically, that Satan is your enemy. Like, in Islamic concept is like the retreating whisperer. So
did he teach him morality?
Huh?
Did he teach him morality?
Yeah, just if I may add something, because Brother Hussain's and the others, I just want to make sure we realize something here. We do, in our conception of God, God is all-knowing. There's really no knowledge outside of what God knows, right? In that concept, we do take everything that God decides to be objectively true, objectively right, or objectively wrong, because there really is no knowledge or any reality outside of what God has created.
Why does that get to be objective? If
Because
God is deciding what's right and wrong, even if he has all the knowledge in the world about everything, it still doesn't make it objective.
It is
still
objective.
It doesn't
because
overcome
it is objective because there is no knowledge outside of what God knows.
But
and
we're
what
not
God,
talking about knowledge. Knowledge isn't what matters
Yeah.
here.
because
Truth is
morality
what
does
matters. That's
depend.
hold on, I haven't finished.
Faisal, just one
Truth
sec.
is
Let's
what
let
matters
Leah
here,
finish.
not knowledge. God can know that things are true, but their truth itself is given independently of what God thinks. That's the point here. So God can know these moral facts, but their truth still holds independently of him.
Not if all truth, everything that you know of, all reality is created by God. God is not part
I
of
don't-
reality. He's
What does
outside
that
of
even
reality.
mean? Truth is a property of sentences. We can create sentences independently of God, and we can have truth independently of God. I'm sorry, I just don't understand
no,
what it means that
I don't
God
think you
created
understand
truth.
the concept. I don't think you understand the concept of God that we have, right? So in our concept of God, we take God to be the ultimate truth. Anything
That's
that
just
What does
begging
that
the
mean?
question. That's just begging the
fine,
question. You're basically
fine.
just
If it is
just
begging the
hang
question,
on a
it
sec.
is
Well, let me finish. Let me finish. That's just presupposing that God
you cut me
is
off,
is
Mark. So let me actually
okay.
finish up. Then you can come back. So for us, when we say that God is the truth, we do say that. That's one of his names, that he is the truth, right? And that anything that comes from him is true, right? For us, it is a matter of just accepting that then, all right? And I get
But
it
when you
that you may
say
not agree with it. You may not
Well,
agree with it. You might say that, yes, that's just begging the question, or you're not presenting an argument. But when you look at reality, that is how reality actually operates. Any other option, any other other opposing view that you want to give, you have to prove how that is actually a better explanation than the explanation that we're giving.
when you
no,
say
that's
that God
shifting the
is
burden of
truth,
proof. Just one second, Lee. I really wanted to address this. For a start, sort of saying for us, God is truth is you're shifting from what is ontologically true to your epistemology. Like, and things are either going to be true as in virtue of like reality. They're going to be either true of reality or not true of reality. It's not going to be true for you and not true for me. Right. So you're sort of doing this weird thing where you're trying to say, well, it's my perspective that it's true when we're talking about what is actually true and what is not actually true. So it's very weird. You're presupposing, you're doing an unjustified presupposition that the God that you are referring to is truth. And I reject that presupposition. Why would I accept that presupposition? But that's so far away from morality and your claim that morality comes from a God, because you're claiming that it is true that it comes from a God, like that it is moral facts that come from a God, while saying, well, it seems to be God's moral opinion, but because he has all this knowledge, it is moral fact. And that doesn't overcome that it is stance dependent, that it is just his will that is providing the moral framework for your worldview.
Yeah, his will provides moral framework for everything. He's the
Then
independent.
it's subjective.
He's the
Well-
independent being, and everything else depends on him.
let
So
me ask an
the moral
important question
framework
here.
depends on him as well.
You said
Right.
God, that in your worldview, God is truth. When you say that, what do you mean by truth there? When you say that God is truth?
God is the ultimate truth in our worldview, right? That
Yeah, but what do you
anything-
mean by that? What do you mean by ultimate truth?
What we mean by ultimate truth is that he exists without needing anything else to exist, right? For him, well, anything else.
Wait, so you mean
for
he's
him to exist.
necessary?
Good
That
night,
is
everyone.
necessary.
Yeah.
But that's not what truth means. So
good
then
night,
you,
Miss
what
Amy.
you mean is that
Nice
God
talking to
is
you, Mark.
necessary.
Bye.
Yeah, good to see you, Hussein. See you later. Sorry to interrupt, Leo. Go for
Hussein,
it.
Very good. Sorry, guys.
wait, please. Hussein, wait. Salam
What?
alaikum. If you don't
Oh,
mind, I
walaikum
would
salam,
like to
walaikum salam.
Who's over talking? Could we
Sorry. Bye.
let Leo go? See you, Hussein.
No,
Have a good night, mate.
I would like
Thank
to
you.
say something to Hussein before he step. Allah Mustaan.
Okay.
So it sounds like what you mean to say is God is necessary, because what you just defined does not sound like anything even remotely close to any definition of truth. Do you have a
So if
particular theory of truth that you hold
if
to?
something is necessary by necessity, it holds true. right?
Well, I don't know what that means, because truth is a property of sentences, and something's being necessary is going to be a metaphysical feature, or more specifically, an ontological feature of it, if we're talking about necessary existence. That has nothing to do with the concept of truth.
For you, maybe not.
Well,
That's fine.
I mean, for modern philosophers and linguists as well, because all of them take truth to be a feature of languages and sentences.
Right. So we
Truth
can
is a
talk
thing
about,
in the world.
yeah, we can talk about abstract concepts, right? And I can say it is true that Superman wears a cape, right? That is a true statement. But it refers to a certain set of parameters that the fictional character of Superman wears a cape. None of it is real, but it is true, right? So
No,
what
I
Leo's
understand.
trying to
I
say
understand
is that when
moral
you
truth.
say God is truth, you don't seem to be applying it as God exists in reality, rather that God provides some kind of validation that everything exists, and that's not what truth means.
Any truth that exists, that you feel that exists independent of whether or not the statement that I'm making is true or not, relies on the ultimate truth that something must exist to give it validation. And that's
What's an
what it is.
ultimate truth? What's an
The ultimate
ultimate
truth is
truth?
what you can actually get that makes sense of that truth. Right? Without
Well, I
that,
mean, I think by ultimate truth, I would sort of say reality, like what actually makes things exist and not
The
exist.
truth
And
maker,
you can
I think,
refer
is what
to
he's
reality.
referring to.
you're basically talking
Like
about
the thing that makes a
it's not
sentence
just about
true.
the truth maker. It's not just about the truth maker, right? What makes these truth makers true? Like if you were
No,
to
no, you're not understanding. Truth
okay, maybe I'm
makers
not understanding
are the
the truth maker.
things that make things true. That's why we call them the truth makers. So if I said, this is just a hypothetical, if I said it's raining outside and somebody looked out the window and saw that it was raining outside, that sentence would be true. What makes it true is the actual fact that it is raining outside. So that's the
Reality.
difference between, say, the truth bearer, which is the sentence, and the truth maker, which is the physical state of affairs the sentence is properly corresponding to. And there's a little bit of like correspondence theory of truth in there. But yeah, so it seems to me that when you talk about this ultimate truth, you're just talking about the truth maker. But it's quite clear that, given the hypothetical I just gave, that we don't need to appeal to anything supernatural to make many types of sentences true.
Do you think reality exists?
Of course.
Okay, where does the reality come from? What is the cause of this reality?
I don't think reality
What is the
comes
cause?
from anywhere, because I think that's the wrong language to describe reality. I think reality literally just is.
Yes.
It just is.
Yes, literally, it just is. And I understand that that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around, but the concept of explanations isn't a feature of the physical world. It's things humans seek about other things. They're intentional features.
So if
for the most
reality
part.
just is, and let's say the only part of reality, let's say that we can actually see, hear, or basically make informed decisions about, right, is what we see in this universe. Okay, there are certain things which are outside of this universe, which I don't necessarily consider would be materialistically defined.
We don't know.
This universe,
How
right?
how would
We
we
don't
even
know. How do we
know?
know? Like, so you're
Like
basically saying
your
there's things.
consciousness,
Hang on.
your
I
consciousness,
knew that's the word he was going to say.
Hang on.
your
So
consciousness is not part of this universe.
Sale, come
right?
on. This isn't. Come on, man. Seriously, come on. The idea that you're sort of saying there's things outside of this sort of universe, you have to demonstrate that is actually the case. We're saying we don't know. There may be a greater something out there. There might be a cosmos with other baby universes in it. We don't know. But you're claiming to assert this and therefore it's true. You've actually got to demonstrate that. So if you can demonstrate something outside this universe, have at it. But just claiming it and asserting it is just a hollow assertion. It's
So
empty. It's baseless.
Mark, it's
Yeah.
a very simple question for me, right?
Okay.
What is more probable, that something gave cause to this universe, or this universe didn't exist without a cause?
False dichotomy.
How?
That's a false dichotomy, because
How?
all I have to do is give one other option, and it's a false dichotomy.
Give me another
So-
option, and we
Yeah,
can
sure.
discuss that one as well.
The universe is originally was in an atemporal state and has
What is an
existed
atemporal
for all
state?
time.
What do you mean by an
not
The
outside of
bouncy
time.
universe.
No, I just want him to make sure that he
Yeah. So what you've
explains
presented
right?
is a false dichotomy. You're basically saying, was the universe this or that? And those are not the only two options. Could be cyclical. It could turn in on itself. I don't think that's true.
I mean,
but that could
we
be a
could grant
possibility.
him.
Okay,
We could
so
grant him the
my
two choices and just give
again,
equal
it's
probability
not
to
a
them.
it's not a
I
false
think that there's
dichotomy.
equal probability that the universe
It is
was
a false
uncaused
dichotomy. I
versus caused.
presented
I'm
another
I'm
option.
asking if
I
there's a
presented a
cause
third
or if
one,
there's no
a fourth
cause.
one.
If
I
there's a
presented a
cause or
fourth
there's no
one.
cause, this is like
I think it's.
it is
I
an
think it's.
exhaustive.
I think it's more probable that the universe existed atemporally, right?
Okay.
That Sean Carroll, when he's talking about it, he sort of says, "Yeah, what does before time even mean? And if time wasn't present, how could the universe begin to exist? Like, what kind of situation could you have?" But I don't know. And I wouldn't go so far as to claim probabilities, because here's your problem. You've got a sample size of 1. Do you know why you don't flip a coin and then say, well, every coin flipped will be heads? Then it's because your sample size is absolutely pathetic. You need at least 300 samples to make any kind of coherent statistical statement. And you've got a sample size of 1.
You're going down a tangent, right? My
That's
question,
not a tangent.
Look,
that a tangent?
listen to what I'm asking you. It is pretty much exhaustive. It's A and not A. Anything that you talk about when you talk about A and not A, it becomes exhaustive.
You're
Was
assuming
there a
that
No,
cause
the
or
notion
but
was
you
of
there
didn't
no
say
cause?
A, not A. You didn't say caused or not caused,
That's what I said.
right?
I mean, he
That's-
did
that's
say
what I
that. Is
asked.
the universe caused or uncaused?
That's what I asked.
Okay,
I think
well,
you misunderstood
uncaused
my
then
question.
is the more probable one. Uncaused then
You're
is the
saying
more
it is
probable one.
uncaused, right? So that for
Sure.
me is where I lose you guys, right? Because you're basically telling me that this universe had no cause, okay? And there's definitely no proof of that, if whatsoever. You're asking me for proof. There's definitely no
of a
proof.
cause. Okay, just say it's caused. There's no proof that causes a god. How do you eliminate
I'm not
naturalistic processes from
jumping.
that?
I'm not jumping to that conclusion. I'm not jumping to
Okay,
that
well,
conclusion
let's,
at
for
all.
the sake of argument, let's say that it's more probable that it was caused. Now,
Yeah.
how do you get to a god?
So, okay, so here's the question. If it was caused, do you think that that cause is has agency or no agency?
Yeah, this is just
Again,
no
this is the-
agency.
well.
You're
See,
saying
hold
no
on here.
agency?
Let me interject here for a second, because
This
the point that
feels
he's
like a
getting at.
script. Basil, just
Well,
one second.
it is.
there.
No script. I'm just asking you.
No,
It's a
this
kalam.
absolutely feels like a script. Like, seriously.
Well, I can tell you what the argument that he's giving is. So it's the idea that if something is a excuse me, a temporal effect, but with an atemporal cause, this wouldn't work on just a mere mechanical cause alone. Because if the cause for, say, X has existed literally forever, and it is truly sufficient for the production of X, then its effect, X, has also existed forever. So if the universe had a cause, but that cause was mechanical, and this cause has existed forever, then the universe would have also existed forever. So the cause, since it exists forever, but its effect doesn't, needs to have the ability to refrain from producing its effect. And the only thing that we can think of that does that would be an agent. Now, there's reasons why this argumentation fails, and that's largely because I don't see why the universe would need a cause. The whole concept of causation is probably something contained within the universe rather than being transcendent to it. And I've never had anybody give me a meaningful metaphysics of causation absent spatiotemporal relations.
Leo, if the cause is eternal and the
Mhm.
reasons why everything has to exist is eternal, what should be the effect?
I just explained the argument you're trying to give.
Should it be temporal or non? Should it be temporal or eternal?
It would be eternal because
It
it's
would be
sufficient.
eternal, right?
Yeah, it's
The
sufficient
universe is
cause is
not
eternal.
The
I know
universe is
that.
not eternal.
Well,
The universe
it's not
is not
temporally
eternal.
eternal, but it is
No,
tenseless.
no, no. The universe is not eternal. We can
We don't
see
How
know
do
that
that.
you
it is temporal.
know?
Hang on.
Okay, wait,
I think eternal. No. Wait, this is my room, Faisal. You don't get to say wait to me. Stop.
You
You're trying
haven't
to run
heard
the
me
room.
out.
All
Then
right,
you
you're
can.
out of here.
That's fine.
Are you gonna listen to me, or are you just gonna carry on?
If you hear me out, what I've just got to say, then I'm very happy to hear you out on why you think you want to refute, because I heard you out completely.
I've been
And I want to
listening
make
to you.
sure.
I haven't talked in quite some time. You and Leo have been going at it. I wanted to add something. Please be respectful and
That's fine.
allow me
Okay.
to add something in my own room. How about that?
Okay, that's
And
fine.
then I will show you the respect that you deserve. Okay, but you're sort of going, you know, I'm this is my room, and you're going, no, you hold on. No. Forget it. No, you're not going to disrespect me like that. No.
All
way.
right, man. Goodbye.
Okay, so when you're saying
Oh.
yeah, okay, dummy spit. When you're saying
It's-
sort of eternal, I think eternal's the wrong word. I think atemporal is a lot better, because when you're talking about eternal, you're talking about infinite time, and I don't think there is infinite time. I think it is atemporal. It's no time at all. So I think eternal is misleading, to be honest with you.
I think another thing, just to add to that, because I agree with that completely. I use the word tenseless, but the word atemporal would work just fine. They mean effectively the same thing.
Tenseless. Yeah.
And the other thing is I would say time is the feature of the universe, which means that the universe itself, in its totality, doesn't endure for any amount of time. And it doesn't itself exist in any space, at least as far as we know. Space-time is a feature of the universe. And this is why it makes no sense to talk about outside of the universe or beyond the universe. It's as much sense as talking about north of the North Pole. The universe itself does not exist in any location. Locations are something that are a feature of the universe. And the universe itself does not endure for any time. Time is a feature of the universe. Too many people take these internal concepts and try to apply them to the universe itself, and I just don't think that we're warranted in doing that.
Right. And maybe they're right. Maybe there was a cause of the universe. Maybe it was an agent, but it's not enough just to claim that. Like, when you can actually do some sort of falsifiability of that idea and investigate it, but we can't even investigate the start of the universe, much less the cause or any perceived cause behind it. Like, we're not there yet. We're not even close to there yet. So I don't know how anyone can claim that they know the cause of the universe, and not just they know the cause of the universe, but they know the cause. It is a agent with certain attributes that has certain wills for you, that has caused everything in the universe and is currently watching over us. This claim is so massive. It has to have
if you don't love him back.
Well, it has to have some really exceptional evidence behind it. And sort of so saying, hey, which is more probable, uncaused, caused, and run through, that's not going to do it.
One thing I have been wondering about, and maybe you guys can shed some light on this for me. So, like the notion that that an agent can refrain from making a decision until the proper time, and that therefore that existence of agency within the tenseless being allows it to start time. I mean, I struggle with the idea that that an agent is going to be making a decision when it's a tenseless being. I mean, if an agent makes a decision, aren't decisions also like temporal in nature? How is a decision, which is essentially a cause for the beginning of time, not just as eternal as as a mechanistic cause?
There is an answer for this.
That's a good
They
observation.
actually have an answer for this.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
want to
just-
know what the answer is.
So
Yeah,
that
man.
answer is
Tell us.
that prior to God's creation of time, he was this is some
Oh, you're
making
breaking
Oh,
up.
you're
I
roboting.
can't hear.
You're
How about
roboting
now?
you.
Yeah,
Now
sound good
you're
now?
fine.
Now I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea is that I'm going to use the word prior. I understand that prior to time starting makes no sense, but just in principle, bear with me here. That quote unquote prior to God's creation of time, he would have apprehended all facts in a single moment, and a single moment is not really time. And it wasn't until God first made that decision, boom, that's the first thing that happens, and you get a sequence of time following that. And that decision would have been to bring the universe into existence. Excuse me. And thus, God and the universe would have simultaneously entered into time, simultaneous with time's beginning. And that's where we're at now. And that is why people like William Lane Craig, which is where I get this response from, because he's, as much as you might dislike him, he's thought a lot about this stuff. That's why he maintains that God does, in fact, endure in time and is not actually technically timeless.
So
That's
God,
a bit weird to me.
God, in making the decision, he made the decision in time, and created time itself at the same time.
Yeah, all of that occurred simultaneously. Absolutely,
Right.
or
But
perfectly simultaneous.
before that, while it is meaningless, is also incredibly meaningful, because yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
So-
an interesting response, but it
Wait, but if you take
technically
it,
works.
if you take it to the extreme, wouldn't that also negate the, let's put it into time before, like, because they say God is eternal, meaning that it goes like back beyond that point a long
Can I give
time, right?
Can I give a an analogy, maybe? Imagine that there was a man sitting down, and he had always been sitting down. He had been sitting down for eternity, from eternity past, rather, and he freely chooses to stand up. That's an event,
Right.
and now everything following that will itself be an event, and now you have time. So God's it's sort of what it was when God created the universe. It was like a man who had literally always been sitting down, freely choosing to stand up.
That
And then that action happens, time is created, the universe and God are there in time, God is in time, and bada boom, bada bing, 13.8 billion years, here we are talking about it. I mean, it didn't happen, so we're not really talking about it, but
it's such a difficult conversation to have, I think.
This really is.
This is why I would never debate this kind of conversation about like the nature of God, because it's like way beyond my pay grade. I'm just a limited human being that's stuck in a mortal coil, you know? And it's interesting, kind of like the science fiction logic that we're kind of imposing into this space, because we're like, how does this work? How does this God work? And I'm like, and I think that is an interesting question. And I think really for a theist, I think an honest theist position is just like, I don't understand. God knows, I don't know. That's what a lot of the ancient classical Islamic scholars said. They're very different than folks now, but they said Allahu Alam, which means God knows, I don't know. So I think that that's probably a better position. Honestly,
Yeah, but
I wouldn't debate.
I mean, it's but the whole idea is that, you know, like that we can't explain God, we can't investigate God, we can't understand anything about God, but there's a whole load of people that want to explain God and tell us that this God exists when they don't understand anything about it. So it's one of the reasons why I find that defense to be kind of lacking, because I would never make a claim of how the universe began or the origins of the universe, right? I'm versed with up until Planck time, kind of, you know. I'm not an astrophysicist, but I understand there was a rapid expansion event, and that caused all these natural phenomenon. But before that, I don't have a clue, and neither do any physicists. Like, really, we are making mathematical models and we are making these hypotheses, but that's not enough to say, hey, we have confidence that is how the universe started. I would never make that claim. So instead of going, well, you know, somebody else knows better than I do, but they know it's naturalistic, I would never say that. So I don't know why it sort of gets you out of that burden of proof by saying, hey, I don't know, but a God does, because you're already assuming that you know the origin of the universe, which is a God. So it's kind of like a circular argument.
I can give the apologist response. what they say, how they can figure out how they know about God. What William Lane Craig would say is, well, and again, I'm speaking as if I'm coming from his camp, that since it's most likely that the universe had a beginning and therefore had a cause, we can deduce from the structure of the universe what kinds of properties its cause must have. So if it created space and time, then it must be itself spaceless and timeless. And then he goes through all the properties. I mean, he does kind of have a point there, but that doesn't necessarily lend any credence to the argument. So,
because I mean, it could be the universe itself in a different state that could be spaceless.
Exactly.
You have to grant that the universe had a beginning. It could still have space, but not time. I'm not sure that just saying that the universe had a beginning or that it was created and that it is this way now, which means that it must have been the opposite before. I mean, maybe it was the opposite. Maybe it was partly the opposite. Maybe it was not timeless, but it was spaceless. I mean, I don't know that it necessarily follows that it must have been either of those things at all. But you know what is more interesting is, and if we had Grayson in here, he could give a lot better explanation of this. But there was a Nobel Prize that was awarded like a couple of years ago that showed that there are certain quantum properties that are not caused by anything. And it's crazy that they were able to prove this. And it's the reason they won the Nobel Prize for it, is that they proved that there were some things about quantum particles where they did things in a probabilistic way and there was no cause, and there is no hidden variable, there is no hidden reason that we just don't know about. It like truly is
properly a
just it's just probabilistic. And if that's the case, then I wonder, like, because the whole basis of the Kalam is this notion that all things have causes. And if that's been falsified, isn't that problematic?
It's the 2023 Nobel Prize in Indeterminism.
There you go.
Yeah, there's actually two things to say about this. So a lot of physicists would say that there are processes that are probabilistic. And what this means is that they can occur and there's just some probability that they can occur and they're going to at some point. At some point, you're going to measure the occurrence. Whether or not this is like a thorough refutation of causality is actually still debated, primarily amongst the philosophers of physics, since they actually get the philosophy. But there's also other things like radioactive decay, which is a stochastic process.
I was going to bring that up.
I think what they did is they claimed to... It was related to Bell's theorem, and they did. I can't remember specifically what it is, but I know, like Matt said, it related to.
You're roboting again, Leo. Just kick your router or something. I don't know. You're roboting again.
It has to do with electron dynamics and the probabilistic and basically the conundrums of the quantum world.
Back.
So yeah, and there were some prominent physicists, Sabine Hossenfelder being one, and Tim Maudlin, who's probably the world's most renowned philosopher of physics, both denied this. That they did not, like, when you actually look at it philosophically, they did not completely rule out whatever it is that they ruled out. And Sabine Hossenfelder appeals to something called, I want to say Tim Maudlin does too, but don't quote me on that, to something called superdeterminism, which
Yes.
some have called an interpretation or a theory of quantum mechanics, like the many worlds or what have you. But then others, like Sabina herself, have said that's not really what it is. Like, it kind of relates to it, but that's not really what it is. I don't exactly remember what specifically superdeterminism is. It has something to do with, like, do physicists actually have the choice when they set up their measurements, and something about how, since we're technically a part of reality, we are a part of the measurement whole thing itself, and so we don't really have it's complicated. I'm not going to try to explain it, but I don't fully understand it.
Yeah, you're making my head hurt, Leo, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm too tired.
But so the main point I was getting at, just to finish this off, is that whether or not causality has been, like, shown to not exist at the quantum level is debated, and a lot of that comes down to that in metaphysics, there's more than one way to interpret causality. There's process models, there's regularity models, there's probabilistic causation models. So, and it comes down to which one you choose. And metaphysicians don't think that necessarily one is correct. They might have one that they favor, but it's still a debate. That people are still talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I guess the point is that so even if that's not 100% true, the fact that it may not be 100% false still means that the argument for Kalam is
the
kind of
Kalam
weak.
argument fails. Yeah, the first premise is false.
Right?
The big
first,
thing
well,
to
I mean,
attack
what you just told me in a very sort of roundabout way is that the first premise may not be false, but it's not necessarily
it's false,
true.
but it's false for other reasons than causality. And that's what I wish.
Isn't the first premise that all things have causes? Isn't that what the first premise is?
It's the first premise is whatever begins to exist has a cause. And what you need to attack is not the idea that what things which begin to exist have causes. Grant that. Just grant it. And then ask, what do you mean by begins to exist?
Oh, you're just going to go with the...
When I cut down a tree and I make a table, did the table begin to exist, or did I just work material into a different form?
Yeah, I gotcha. The sample size of one argument, right?
It's like a ship of
The only thing that's ever
Theseus.
begun to exist is the universe.
When did the ship of Theseus begin to exist? Like, was it when somebody cut down the first tree? Was it when the hull was made? Was it when the mast went up? Just say they finished the entire thing, sailed off, and did it begin to exist when it sailed? What if they forgot to add the anchor and went back for it? Does that mean it existed and not existed? Like, there's these questions of, but basically Leo is right. Nothing. Yeah, so nothing really begins to exist. We just have changes of state in the universe.
All moments of time are equally real.
Mm-hmm.
And if something's in space-time, then it just exists. The fact that you might not exist co-extended through space-time alongside it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Much the same way that I suspect none of us in this room right now are in France, and thus cannot observe or interact with in any way the Eiffel Tower. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means it exists, but it's in a different part of space than where I'm at. Same thing with time.
Well, this has been a slice, guys. I have to run, but I wanted to leave you with this nugget that this whole notion that the scientists are a part of the experiment kind of reminds me of a comic I saw once where somebody said, well, did he die of natural causes? And the other guy said, well, technically, I mean, I am part of nature.
Yeah.
Before you go,
he died of lead poisoning. He was shot 40 times. Yeah.
Yeah. Before you go, I wanted to tell you, Mr. Anderson.
Oh yeah, let's get a link for Mr. Anderson.
Aladdin, he came on and hasn't said a word.
Okay.
Do you have anything you would like to say, Aladdin, or are you just trying to pick a fight with Isa?
No. I'm not picking up a fight with anybody. I'm just listening to you because I'm worried that the host might tell me you are disrespectful. You speak over me, then he'll kick me out as he kicked Faisal. So I'm being quiet, which is unjust. Faisal, now let me tell you something.
Faisal, hang on a second. Hang on. You can't just throw out accusations. Faisal came in sort of very, very. I tried. I do apologize. It's just I lost my temper because I just wanted to add something, and yeah, I'm not allowed to. And then I say, hang on, just 1 second. Like I would like to be able to say what I say, and he interrupted me as well. So you
And he left on his own, by the way.
A show. Yeah, I didn't actually kick him. He left on his own.
I'm going to follow his example by
he
interrupting
raged.
you and leaving on my own.
Sure.
We'll see you later, Mark.
Yeah.
Take care. Have a good night.
Mr. Anderson.
See you guys.
You actually threatened to kick him out. So therefore, he decided to leave.
Well, yeah, he was being disruptive.
And
Yes.
you forget that this is Mark's channel. This is Mark's stream.
He can kick you out for no reason at all if he wants to. It doesn't matter if you don't
Yeah.
like it or not.
Yeah, but
Sucks
I don't
to
want to
suck.
do that. That's fine.
Well, I
didn't
know
wanna
you
kick
wouldn't
him
do
out
that,
either.
but
You see,
Yeah, I didn't want to
you are
kick
all
him out
speaking
either.
over me now. Does that sound disrespectful? I was talking, and all of you jump over me, right? You see, I just give an
you're gonna
example.
cry so much
and
it
you did
looks
not
like
let
you
me
fell
speak.
when you went
No,
fishing.
it's okay. Let him finish. Let him have his
No,
accusations. It's fine.
To the guy who's saying crying, please just stop playing this, kids game with me. I know I'm here just for the Muslim brothers. I wanted to talk actually even with Hussein, but unfortunately he left because as soon as I came, I said, please wait. He left. To the Muslim
I'm
brothers,
sorry.
Can I finish, please?
Well, I
You
thought
don't
you had. Sorry.
No, I'm not yet finished, please. The Muslim apologist or Isa Kabir, I don't know if you're Muslim. Sometimes you sound like a Muslim. Sometimes you sound like a Jewish. Sometimes you sound like an atheist. I don't know what are you exactly. So now,
Just the way we like it.
for the Muslims, I see as a Muslim there is no use debating with an atheist. Is Islam is true? Because they don't believe in the source, the existence of the source. So whatever you try as a Muslim to convince them that Islam is true, still they won't accept it because they don't believe in the source. It's, for
I
example,
believe in the
like
source, all right.
you see now you
Okay,
speak over me.
just okay. No. Aladdin. See, the problem is that you're making continuous statements, kind of thing. You're basically filling up with these continuous statements and not allowing us to address any of them. So part of this room is run on discussion with everybody. So you don't just get to come on here and make these statements and go, well, I didn't want to talk to these atheists. I want to talk to the Muslims. Do you know how incredibly disrespectful that is? To come on here and go, well, I don't want to talk to half of you because I don't see it worth talking to you.
You don't believe in the source, guys.
You see, now you jumped all over me and you start attacking me personally.
Oh,
I didn't say that.
Nobody's jumping all over you.
No. We say you've been disrespectful, etc. I didn't say that I'm not here to speak to you. I said at the beginning I would like to address my Muslim brothers. I didn't say. So you put words in my mouth that I did not say. You see, with all the respect to you, spoke at the beginning about the free will. And the Muslim brothers start talking about the free will without having enough knowledge, even quoting evidence from the Holy Quran to show you that we Muslims have a free will. You start talking about morality, and the brothers failed actually to show you any evidence from the Islamic sources, the Quran or the traditional saying of Prophet Muhammad about morality and how morality is important for us, evidences. They failed to show you that. So with all due respect to you, that's what I was telling them. And that's what I was saying. It is
Can you show the evidence? Instead of going like around the meta and stuff, if you have evidence, bring it. Because you said that it's futile to talk to atheists, but
yes,
if you made a good argument, if you gave me evidence or something, you might convince me. I'm not closed off to being convinced.
By the way, I do agree with you. Free Palestine.
Yeah, I'm Palestinian.
I agree as well.
I am Palestinian as well from West Bank, and I have families who are living there. My family, most of my family are living in West Bank, and they're suffering like any other Palestinian. And I lost members of my family as well.
Some of your Muslim brothers said that was a good thing because it's a test.
So
I don't agree with that.
No, that's their opinion. That's politics already. Politics is different than the religion. So we're not talking politics here. Now, I don't know what's your name, the gentleman with an eyeglasses. He asked me to show some examples.
Oh, it's right here.
Max.
I'm sorry, I'm almost 60 years old. My eyesight is really not that good, so I cannot see it. I do apologize. See, I'm almost 60 years old. I'm not that young.
You sound 27.
No, I'm 59. I'm 59 years old.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Just make
No. My eye. I'm saying that's what I'm trying to tell him, that my eyesight is very poor.
Yeah, mine is really bad too. That's why I wear these.
Now, first of all, you were talking about morality, and you said that you want anything, prove morality in Islam.
Sure.
You know, our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in one of our traditional saying, he said, إنما بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق. I was not sent but to perfect morals. And he gave us so many examples in the Holy Quran about morality. And I'll give you some of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for
Okay.
example, Allah says in Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verse 90, إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.
Wait.
Stop.
Can we
English, come on.
avoid the Arabic, because none of us speak Arabic?
No, with all due respect to you, I'll use the original language of the Quran. Then I'll give you the English.
Yeah, but
Dean,
means
no,
nothing.
Max, just a sec. Like we're conversing in English, and I'm really sorry if that's difficult for you, but that's the language. You know, if we let everybody come here and speak in whatever language they want, it'd be a frigging mess. Max would be talking in Spanish. Right, you know, Leo'd be talking in physics, and I'd be talking in Australian, which nobody can understand.
Sorry, Mark. So he was actually quoting the Quranic verses in Arabic. So
I understand, but that's not going to mean anything to us because we can't.
I think he's just doing it for demonstration purposes, and as Muslims we actually believe
it means nothing.
I don't care who you want to reach or who you want to talk to. If you're talking to us, talk to us in a language that we understand.
I think he
refused to do that. You know, what are we supposed to get from it?
Sorry, he did say that he wanted to translate it into English. Yeah.
Right, but the problem is that
you
take twice the time. We don't understand Arabic, so you can just say that and go directly to the English verse.
Okay, Shay, why don't you translate
brother, the Muslim apologists, they demand respect and they do disrespect us. You said respect. Let me finish, please. You should not demand respect. You should earn. You see, you interrupted me again. You cut me off, both of you. You spoke over me, and I can't use your logic.
Arabic,
you see, if you allow.
All right, I kicked him that time. Look, I'm not trying to be nasty. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just we've got to run a room with certain things in mind. We have an audience watching. They don't understand you either. You're basically just doing things that are really disruptive to the stream.
Performative.
So please stop. You've got to be able to have a conversation with us, not just tell us things and then talk in a language that we don't understand, because no one wants to see that. No one wants to hear it. Now, I'll put you back on. Have a discussion with us. Have an actual discussion, not just sort of saying things in Arabic. It's pointless.
Do you mind if I say one?
Could you apologize for throwing me backstage without no reason? I did not insult you. Or
I had a reason. I had a reason.
I'm trying to have a rational discussion with you.
Isa, what did you want to say, Isa?
So I'll explain what that is. So Islamically, that's a normal kind of cultural thing. Is that first you recite it in Arabic and then you translate it. That's a very kind of normal practice.
Yeah, that was what I was trying to say. Yeah,
and
I appreciate that, Isa. Thank you, Isa. I appreciate that. So we as Muslims, because we believe there is a noise at the back. Brother, the Muslim, can you please mute?
Muslim apologists, you've got a lot of background noise there, mate. Could you just mute?
Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to just tell my son to switch off the TV.
No worries, mate. Not a problem.
Okay,
cheers,
let me tell you something. For Mark, with all respect to you and your co-host, as Brother Isa told you and the apologists, we as Muslims usually we read the original Arabic because we know that the English does not give 100% translation for the meaning of the verse. I don't mean to be rude or disrespectful to you in any way, but that's our traditional Islamic ruling as a Muslim. So I hope that you don't mind me. Just it will take me less than a few seconds to read it in Arabic, then I'll give you the English right away.
No, it takes twice the time, and we don't understand it, so it's pointless. It's pointless.
And it's kind of performative.
Okay. I'll do it your way. Okay. You were talking about morality, and I showed you from the traditional saying of Prophet Muhammad that he says that he just came. The most important that he came and he was sent to perfect good morals. And Allah gave some examples in the Holy Quran about good morals. If you come to chapter 16 of the Holy Quran, we call it Surah An-Nahl, chapter An-Nahl, verse 90. Allah says, indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct and giving help to relatives and to strangers, and forbid immorality and bad conduct and oppression. He admonishes you that perhaps you will be reminded. Allah says again in chapter 6 of the Holy Quran.
Wait. You gave
We
us
got
a
to address
chapter.
that.
Yeah, we have to address that. Now,
Okay.
the problem is, do you want to go, Mark?
No, go, Mike. Go. I've been talking.
The problem that I'm seeing here is that you're saying Allah said, do not do oppression. But in my view, women are oppressed in Islam. Islam, when in its inception, oppressed other people. And if you are an apostate, you get oppressed, or the worst extension of that is that you get killed. So we have a contradiction there.
No, you lie about you lie here about Islam. So for me as a Muslim, Allah says it 3 times in the Holy Quran, present us your evidence. Now you said women are oppressed. Non-Muslims are don't interrupt me, please. Just I listen to you, listen to me. Now, as a Muslim, that's another claim from you. I want you to present me the evidence that Muslims, women are oppressed. Give me any Islamic sources say that Muslim women are oppressed. It's only in your hate to serve your agenda. You said that Muslim women are oppressed, but there is nowhere in Islam women are oppressed. So please, next time when you bring me a claim about Islam, present me the evidence. You just don't just throw. You even did not comment on my verse, the verse I gave. You start creating another topic and you jump totally.
No one in America is oppressed. No one ever.
Okay, so hold on. So I want to point to An Nisa 34, where it says that you can, punish your wife for being belligerent, basically. So, you want an example? There's an example, Al Nisa, the verse for women. I believe it was the men are the protectors and maintainers of women because Allah has given the one more strength than the other and they support them from their means. Therefore, the righteous women are devoutly obedient and guard in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. As to those women who apart ye fear disloyalty and ill conduct, admonish them first.
Can you give me the verse number?
Excuse me.
The verse number, please. I said. Can you give me the verse number?
34. And
okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Refuse to share their beds, and last beat them lightly. But if they return to obedience, seek not of them means of annoyance. For Allah is most high and great above you all. So that's oppression. That is oppression. The whole idea that Allah orders justice, Allah says to give help to relatives, Allah says do not perform oppression. There's multiple civilizations that came up with those before Islam even existed. So I'm not sure how these people get that, and you haven't even demonstrated that actually comes from Allah and not just from some person claiming to be spoken to by Allah. I don't understand how you made that connection.
So allow me to school you from Islamic sources with love and respect. You see how you misquote the verse and you give your own understanding to the verse without going to the original Islamic books. You said women are oppressed here. Do you know that the verse was not talking about women in general? Does it talk about women in general? It does not. So you assume only in your head that it's talking. It says, nushuzahunna in the Arab. That's why I says I want to use the Arabic. You know what's the meaning? Nushuzahunna? It talks about those rebelled women. It does not talk about all women in general. And now, those rebelled women, those women who disrespect the husband, who insult the husband, who curse the husband, don't laugh at me. So I'm trying to school you here.
I laugh at whatever I want.
No. You see, when I'm trying to school you in a nice way from the Islamic sources, I'm sorry. He's not here for discussion. Thank you. When you learn how to show respect, I'll come back again. Thank you very much. God bless.
Well, it just seems like you're sort of saying
he's a troll. He's a troll.
Well, hang on.
No, I'm out.
Hold on, Aladdin.
Wow. All right. It sounds like he's sort of saying it's not oppression because they're only beating the rebel women.
The bad women, yes.
The bad women.
If you beat the bad women, then it's fine. It's not oppression. You're just setting them
why
straight.
So the question comes, why can't the women beat the bad men?
Oh, no, that would be bad.
Because it's
society
a one-way
will collapse.
oppression. Well, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up here because I am so tired. I'm so sorry. I do apologize. I kind of lost my temper at the other guy, and I do apologize.
Yeah, me
I'm just
too.
incredibly
What
tired.
time is it where you are, Mark?
It's 1:26, but I didn't sleep very well last night.
AM or PM? I'm assuming PM.
AM, yeah.
It's
Okay.
1:26 p.m. here as well. So I'm in Malaysia. I presume you're in
Damn, you're
Australia.
13 hours ahead of me.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
for me it's 2:27
Wait, Saturday?
a.m.
Yeah, it's a Saturday here. I presume the same for Mark as well.
Yeah.
probably the same
You're in
time zone.
It's 6 a.m. here too.
you're in
I'm in Malaysia. Yes, I'm in Malaysia.
Yes.
Yeah, GMT
So I
8.
think
We have the
I
same
know
time
we're
zone.
in it's the same as the Indonesian time zone, as far as I'm aware.
Are you in Indonesia?
No, I'm in Western Australia, but it's the same time zone.
Yeah.
No, I'm a white
Indonesia
man. I live here in the
Indonesia
Western
is
world.
Indonesia is 1 hour behind. Yeah. So yeah, I think we have the same time zone. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you coming on. I do apologize for being a bit short with the other guy. I just feel like it was just.
No, it's okay. I know the
very-
Sheikh, and I think he was just trying to explain the verses from a traditional
Yeah,
point
but
of view. Yeah.
aggressiveness doesn't take you anywhere. And when you tell
I
me
don't. Yeah.
I'm going to school you, it's like, well,
I don't know, Max. I think honestly, I feel a bit offended with your behavior just now as well, because as a Muslim, I do.
Why? I
think-
laugh. I'm sorry.
Yes,
If you,
I feel
if
offended.
you feel,
I truly feel offended.
I
truly
laugh.
feel
If
offended.
if a laugh offends you, that's a bit of your problem, not my problem.
Because you laughed at the Quranic verse, so it's offensive to us. I think Issa will agree with me.
No. Hold on. Muslim apologist. He's laughing at the person's interpretation that the verse saying beating a woman is not oppression because that woman is being.
Yeah, the verse doesn't talk
rebellious.
about women. The verse talks about
also
disobedient women.
I wasn't
Disobedient
laughing
wives.
at
Sorry.
I wasn't laughing at the verse. I was laughing at the expression, I'm going to school you. That's what I'm laughing.
Oh, okay,
I was
gotcha.
laughing at. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So
I think he meant it in the best possible way, to be honest with you.
I
Like,
laugh.
going to
I'm sorry.
educate you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
I don't have a
Okay.
problem with it.
Okay.
People laugh at me constantly.
Maybe I misunderstood you, Max. So I apologize as well if I misrepresented you. Right?
You don't have to apologize. It's just a misunderstanding. But
okay.
telling me that laughing is offensive.
No, because you see, the thing is, we consider the Quranic verse to be sacred, regardless whether it's Arabic or English.
Yeah, but you.
So what if we don't? What if we don't? Like, what if we don't consider it? What if you laugh at a Bible verse?
At least
Hang on.
show
Let
some
me finish.
respect.
Muslim apologist. If you laugh at a Bible verse, that doesn't make you suddenly disrespectful or anything. Just because you place a high importance on this.
I don't laugh
have
at
no
biblical
compulsion.
verses.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you've laughed at sort of,
Critical,
Hussein
maybe,
was-
yes.
Hang on. Well, Hussein was laughing at our ideas of atheism and morality and stuff like that, and I just go,
Okay.
you can laugh if you want. I don't mind.
Yeah.
Like let's be real here. If you consider this verse to be, you can't say anything against this verse or laugh
Because
at the
we
verse or
you see, the
any
thing is,
way-
you just need to understand that we believe that the Quran is literally from God. It was literally revealed.
Yeah,
from God.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm really
I
sorry.
believe my
Like,
penis
I-
is literally
I-
from
I
God.
know you-
I'm beating
I know you
it.
don't.
No, hang on. Like, I want to mean this in the best possible way. I
Okay,
care
alright.
about you as a human, and I care that, I do care that you're offended, but I don't care what your beliefs are in regards to this.
I know
verse.
you don't, and
It-
I'm not forcing my beliefs upon you either. So I'm just saying what it is.
Well,
it is what it
kind
is.
of sounds like you are when you sort of say, well,
No, I'm
you
not.
shouldn't laugh at that verse because we consider it sacred. It does sound like you're forcing your beliefs on us, that we should change our behavior in accordance with your beliefs.
Yeah, fine, if you think that's appropriate behavior, then I guess that's up to you. Yeah.
Somebody's
Well,
at your
I'm
door,
really
Mike.
sorry. Anyway, I'm going to call it quits. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining me. I hope you've had a good time. It was a really good discussion, and I am so tired. I need a grandpa nap so badly. I'm so sorry. But I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to give a big shout out to Maximiliano Vishna, Robin Webster, Ember, Yahooligan, Robin Webster again, and Maximilian Vishna. Oh, I met a Mr. Super Chat. I got it. I'm here. Who for Singaporean $5 tap that like button.
It's in Singapore.
eternally,
Okay.
guys.
Leslie
Yeah,
Train
yeah.
installed.
I only missed it by half an hour, Maximiliano. It's only half an hour late, mate. That's a really good work on my part. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Do have a good day. Don't forget to be kind to yourself. Try to be kind to others, even though you're really tired and getting frustrated. And I do apologize for that. So thank you everybody so much, and I will see you in the next one. I'm gonna sign off now. See you.
Thank you.
What do you